The alarm ripped through my quarters before my eyes were even open, and I was on my feet with my heart slamming against my ribs before I understood what I was hearing. Perimeter breach. Not a drill, not a system glitch, a breach. My name is Callan Reeve, and I run maintenance on Outpost Verity, a small research station on the edge of nowhere, 3 months from the nearest human colony by fast transport. Out here, a breach alert does not mean a raccoon got into the trash. It means something crossed a boundary that nothing is supposed to cross. I grabbed my jacket, shoved my feet into boots without lacing them, and burst out of my room into the corridor. The lights were flashing amber, which meant the system had not decided if this was a threat yet. Amber, not red. That gave me a strange kind of hope, and a strange kind of fear at the same time. I reached the outer hatch and pressed my palm to the scanner. The door hissed open, and the cold hit me first, sharp and biting, the kind of cold that wakes every nerve in your body in half a second. Then I saw her. Something was curled up right outside my door, on the small platform where the station left supply drops. At first, my mind refused to process it. It was long, maybe the size of a large dog, with wings folded tight against a body covered in scales that shimmered faintly, like they were lit from somewhere underneath the skin. Her eyes were closed. Her sides moved slowly, unevenly, like each breath cost her something. And beneath her, wrapped completely in her coiled body, was a sealed metal case, humming faintly with a soft blue light. I stood frozen at the doorway, my breath fogging in front of me, my hand still on the frame. Every part of my training told me to step back inside, seal the hatch, and call this in immediately. Unknown biological entity, possible hostile. Protocol was clear. But she was shaking, not attacking, not lunging, shaking, the way something shakes when it has pushed itself past every limit it has, and has nothing left to give. One of her wings was torn along the edge, and there was a dark patch on her side that did not look like part of her natural coloring. I do not fully know why I did what I did next. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was something quieter than instinct. I stepped forward instead of back. Her eyes snapped open the moment my boot touched the platform. They were a deep amber, vertical pupils narrowing instantly on me, and a low sound rumbled out of her chest, somewhere between a growl and a warning. Her wings flared just slightly, not enough to fly, but enough to say stay back. I stayed exactly where I was, and raised both hands, palms open, the same way you would with a frightened animal, or a frightened person. I am not going to hurt you, I said quietly, my voice sounding strange in the freezing air. I promise. She did not understand my words, I was almost certain of that, but something in my tone must have reached her, because the growl faded into something softer, more like a wary hum. Her body was still curled protectively around that case, and I understood then that whatever it was, it mattered more to her than her own safety. Behind me, the corridor lights blinked amber to red. Someone else on the station had woken up and seen the readings. I did not have much time before others arrived and made the decision for me. I knelt down slowly, keeping my movements small and unthreatening. Okay, let me help. She watched me with those sharp amber eyes as I reached into the small emergency kit mounted beside the hatch, the one meant for human injuries, not whatever she was. I pulled out a thermal blanket and a sealed pack of nutrient paste, the kind we used during long repair shifts outside the station. I set them down a few feet from her, not close enough to threaten her, close enough to offer. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her head lowered, slow and cautious, and she sniffed at the nutrient pack. Something in her posture eased, just slightly, and she pressed her nose against it before finally, carefully, taking it. Footsteps echoed down the corridor behind me. I turned to see Devlin Marsh, our station's lead technician, skidding to a stop at the hatch, eyes wide, weapon half raised out of pure reflex. "Callan, get away from it," he said, voice tight. "Lower that," I said, standing between him and her without fully thinking it through. "She's hurt. She's not attacking anyone. You don't know what that is. No, I admitted. But I know what fear looks like. And that's what I'm looking at. Devlin hesitated, his weapon lowering an inch, but not fully. More footsteps came, more voices, until half the station crew had gathered at the hatch, staring at the creature curled on our platform like something out of an old story, guarding her case like it was the only thing in the universe that mattered. She flinched at the growing crowd, wings tightening around the case again, that low warning hum returning to her throat. I raised a hand to the others. "Give her space," I said. "Please, all of you, just step back." To my surprise, they did. Maybe it was the strangeness of the moment. Maybe it was something in my voice. The crew backed away, and slowly, her breathing steadied again. Over the next several hours, something began to shift. Our station's linguistic system, built originally to decode unknown signals, started picking up patterns in the soft pulses of light beneath her scales. Not words, not sounds, but rhythm, color, intention. It was Priya Nandan, our communications officer, who first realized the creature was not simply reacting. She was trying to communicate. "She's not an animal," Priya said, eyes fixed on her monitor as light patterns scrolled beside a rough translation attempt. "Not in the way we think of one. This is language. A different kind, but language." Slowly, painfully, over hours that felt like days, a picture began to form. Her species called themselves the Kalis, and they were old, far older than humanity, spread thin across the stars, watching, recording, deciding which younger civilizations deserved a place beside them and which did not. They had been watching Earth for longer than anyone alive had existed. The case beneath her was not a weapon. The scans confirmed that within the first hour, easing much of the tension in the room. It was something else, something the Kalis called a thread mark, a kind of seed of knowledge and technology, offered only when a civilization proved, through some individual act, that they were worth the risk of contact. And she had been the one chosen to carry it. Not because she was the strongest of her kind, but because, as the translations slowly revealed, this was her trial. Every young Kalis had to prove themselves by carrying a thread mark across dangerous space alone, delivering it precisely, to the exact person and the exact place the elders had chosen. That person was me. I did not understand it at first, and honestly, I still do not fully understand it. Priya's translations suggested that years ago, during a rescue operation I barely remembered, a moment of decision I made without thinking twice, had been observed. A moment where I chose to risk myself to save a stranger instead of walking away. It was such a small thing to me. Apparently, it was not small to them. She had crossed a stretch of space I could not even picture, alone, injured, terrified, to place that case on my doorstep on the one day their calculations marked as significant, my birthday, though I doubted that detail mattered to her people the way it mattered to mine. By the time the case finally opened, guided gently by her own trembling claws rather than by any of us, the entire crew stood in silence. Inside was no weapon, no explosive, nothing that matched the fear that had gripped us hours earlier. Instead, there were strands of light, delicate structures of knowledge folded into physical form, technology and understanding offered freely, a bridge extended across an impossible distance. Devlin, who had raised a weapon at her only hours before, now stood with his hands loose at his sides, staring at the case like it had rewritten something in him. She was too weak to make the return journey alone. That much was clear from how her body sagged the moment her task was finally complete, as if she had been holding herself together purely through will. I did not hesitate. "She stays here," I said, "until she's strong enough. And after that, if she wants to stay longer, she stays as long as she wants." No one argued. In the days that followed, I sat with her often, sometimes in silence, sometimes trying new words, watching her scales pulse gently in response. I started calling her Wren, a name she seemed to accept, or at least tolerate, tilting her head whenever I used it, her sharp eyes softening just slightly each time. I still think about that first night, the cold air, the amber eyes, the way fear and courage looked exactly the same on her, curled protectively around something she believed in enough to risk everything for. She had crossed the galaxy not for glory, not for conquest, but to deliver a message that said, simply, "You are not alone, and you were chosen because someone, somewhere in the vast dark, saw something in you worth crossing the stars for." And every time I looked at her resting quietly by my side, I understood that the greatest gift I had ever received was never inside that case. It was her.